If you are hearing this message on the day this is uploaded, this is your absolute last chance for Listener Request Month. There is less than a week to go. It's very simple. You call 856-DISSECT. That's 856-347-7328. If you need it again, there's a rewind button on your podcast player. We are picking the movies in April and We are picking the movies in April on a special date to be announced, and we will release the episodes in May. All you got to do is call in, leave us your name, where you're calling from, the movie you'd like to hear, and a short description of it. Keep it punchy, keep it quick. They've been good. The ones who've come in this year, you've all been doing great, so keep it up. Once again, 856-347-7328. You have until 11:59 on March 31st. When the clock strikes April, it's over. If you're hearing this on an Android device and you're not using the Podcast Republic app, head on over to the Google Play Store and check it out. There are thousands of good reviews from listeners all over the world telling you the wonderful features that they like, such as favoriting your episodes so they show up and you don't have to remember it. I don't know about you, but I don't remember any days for any of my podcasts.
Nope. I don't remember any days, period. Like, if it's not in my phone, that day doesn't exist.
An important part of every day for the last year for me is clicking my phone on in the morning and going, what day is it? Okay, what do I have to do today? So let the podcast app do the work for you. That's the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store. Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Trip Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers. And with me, as always, is my tag team partner, a man who absolutely, positively, surely would have been cast as TickTock in the high school version of this film or play, I suppose. The Macho Man Drew.
Andrew Lano. I would not have wanted to be, though, because the dude, we'll get into it, but the way they actually had a man playing TickTock looks like it would have destroyed your back. And
Oh, do they have someone all scrunched up in there?
It's a man. It's a gay guy. If you go to the Instagram Movies That Made Us Gay, they made a post about it in March. He's literally like squatted down and also bent in half, and so he's just like walking. But
I don't want to come off insensitive here, but why would you not cast a little person to play the thing like this? Like,
so
like Miss Kenny Baker and R2-D2.
So I think it's because for the proportions, like the head is a full like animatronic piece. Like there's no one, so like a head can't be inside of it. Like a human head can't be inside of it.
Sure, but like TickTok's like 4 feet tall. I feel like you could cast a person who was short enough to comfortably,
shorter than 10-year-old Fairuza Balk. Because TickTok's about her height.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yes, I do think this is. I mean, someone was inside R2-D2. Kenny Baker was inside R2-D2.
Yeah, but R2's what, like 3 feet tall?
I mean, yeah, about the same. That seems like right around the TickTok height.
I don't know.
Anyway, we watched Return to Oz. So you know what that means.
We gotta go back. We gotta go dissect the 80s. It's your 40-year sequel. Something's gotta be about your 40-year sequel.
When the mega powers explode.
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott.
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Mega powers, yeah.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
More than that. I think it's 46 on this bad boy.
Because
1939, 1985.
Oh, almost 50 years.
Yes. It's Andrew programs the show in the month of April. That very catchy acronym, APTSITMOA, that you all know and love. Back again in 2021. So why are we doing this?
So this is a movie that I've seen again, like the Thing. I've seen the singles, but I've never listened to the whole album. And it's sort of legendary in like children's movies of things that are scary that kids are exposed to, and like kids are like, I'm brave for watching. Like I want to feel brave, so I'm going to watch this movie and be okay with it. It's also just like mind-bogglingly buck wild. It's very weird.
It
doesn't make sense on a lot of levels. Like from a production standpoint, it doesn't really make sense. But
no,
we'll get into
it's also an interesting anomaly I want to bring up. Directed by Walter Murch, the one and only film he ever directed. But this is a man who worked for I think he's still
He didn't write it. Did he say written and directed, or just directed?
I don't know if he has writing credit. I just know he was director, but this is the only thing he ever directed. He was a sound guy, worked a lot in sound, and also was a film editor. So he worked in either or both of those categories on a lot of movies you've heard of. Godfather 2, Apocalypse Now, former episode of this show, Ghost, the English Patient, which he has a couple Academy Awards from English Patient, and I believe another one from something else on the list. I apologize, I didn't write it down. But just an interesting thing is, I don't think this movie is poorly directed. It didn't make a lot of money.
No.
And I wonder...
Well, Disney was like, this is awful. We're not going to promote this, and it's going to be in theaters for a month.
Yeah. I mean, all that stuff comes down to marketing. But in terms of looking at this movie and making an assessment of its director, there's some cool stuff going on here. There's some interesting blocking, interesting choices of shots.
Objectively, if you're looking at it just as a movie, there's cool stuff happening, but then you realize it's a Wizard of Oz sequel that isn't a Wizard of Oz sequel, but it is a Wizard of Oz sequel, and it starts to get real muddy.
It's really interesting to me because I know that the Wizard of Oz has something like 30 books in the series. It might be more than that.
Oh, is it that many?
Yeah, it's a preposterous.
I always thought it was more like
after,
a 9, 10, like a 11, like a 9 to 11 sweet spot.
There were more books written after.
Oh, because his son, L. Frank's son, started doing it. I think.
I believe that's correct. I'm not 100% sure if it's his son that wrote all of these, but there were just a million books in this original. So the original book comes out in 1900, and I'm pulling it up the list here, trying to quickly. I believe I saw yesterday. So he did. L. Frank Baum did, it looks like, 14 books.
Oh, wow. There's already more than I assumed.
Yeah, plus plays and stuff. And then there were many other books written. So even if you just take his original 14, that's a lot. I think the number of written by others gets you up in the ballpark of
we're talking like a
30
Goosebumps
or so
and
books.
Animorphs.
Yeah, so this woman, Ruth Plumley Thompson, she wrote 21. This says an original Oz book was published every Christmas between 1913 and 1942. So that's about 30 right there. Hugely popular, enormously popular. I have very little connection to anything of Wizard of Oz, including the original movie, although I did watch that many times as a kid, and I obviously am like soaked in it from culture because it's the oldest movie that endures in our American culture. And obviously, like I've been to the Smithsonian, I've seen the Ruby Slippers, I know I've made jokes about this movie and quoted lines from it and all those things.
Yeah, the original Wizard of Oz holds a special place in my heart because, like, in high school, looking back, when I had what I would call my first panic attack in high school, and I like couldn't handle. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't handle writing this paper. I didn't know what to do. Like, ended up like almost or was crying to mom about like how overwhelmed by everything I felt in the world. She was like, okay, you're not going to go to school tomorrow. You'll write the paper tomorrow. It's okay. Let's just hang out on the couch. And it's late. I was obviously writing this late paper late at night. So
yeah, like at 9:30
it's like a 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we, I think she made me some tea and we lay on the couch and we watched The Wizard of Oz as like a calm me down moment. So, like, for that reason, it's very special. Also, all the, like, LGBT and, pop culture icon stuff that I love about this movie. And also, I know, like, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff for the original, comparisons to the book, because I read the book or it was read to me when I was in 4th grade. It was, like, my 4th grade teacher ended the day by reading, like, a chapter or a chunk of the book to us.
Okay, I should rephrase. I don't dislike Wizard of Oz. It's just it's not. I wanted to make sure I phrased it appropriately for folks out there. So I know this is a movie that's beloved by millions of people.
The original.
I know many people. Yeah. The Wizard of Oz. Yes. I don't like have any animosity toward it. I have a general vague goodwill is where I land on. It's like it's fine. If somebody was like, you want to watch that, I'd be like, not really, but okay, like that's fine. It seems like a movie that'd be super fun to watch at a revival screening. It seems like
I would love that.
The color transition would really pop if you could find this on a print somewhere. So that's all I'm saying. But I wound up for like 9 minutes there, but what I was originally trying to say is, despite the fact that I know there are, 13 original sequels plus another 30 or 50 or whatever the hell the number is, the original movie, I don't know how the book ends. I don't know what the difference is.
I'll probably tell you.
May. But the original movie doesn't feel like one that needs a sequel to me.
No, not at all.
It's a story about growth of character, and Dorothy has a journey of in both the literal and metaphysical sense.
Mm-hmm.
She changes. She's meets new friends and they change her, and she has epiphanies and all that. And then at the end, it's like, well, she has now had this formative experience that is going to shape her life, but it's the idea of checking back in on Dorothy seems ludicrous to me on its face. Like it's such a crazy idea, and it also
just
to
I'd
me
rather just go
says
back to Oz. Like
right.
There's a lot of people in
Like-
Oz.
Right. Like if like it doesn't need to be or it's something where like Dorothy has decided to move there. Like she's just
Okay.
like, I don't
I
like
just
the
meant,
regular
tell
world
me the
anymore.
a story in Oz. Like a new witch has appeared, and now the Scarecrow, who's in charge of the Emerald City, has to like rally the troops to like go fight a different witch. Like I don't like.
Yeah.
Options that you could have taken for a sequel.
The modern sequel to this would be Dorothy is 17 and broody, and she doesn't feel like she fits in, and she's sick of living in the black and white world, and so she runs away to Oz, and then it becomes like this much like this. It becomes a very dangerous
You're
journey.
thinking of Tin Man, the sci-fi miniseries that I loved.
Oh, really? Is that
Yeah.
is that the same gimmick?
Zooey Deschanel plays DG, a diner waitress, and Alan Cumming plays the Scarecrow.
Really? I'm sorry. We have to stop there. We're gonna have to. I'm sorry. I was taking a sip of water, pulled
Yep.
back the curtain to let people know there was a pause for the reasons of hydration. Her name is DG?
Yes.
I'm so upset.
Well,
It's ridiculous.
Well, it's because you find out in the end. Spoiler alert for a 8-year-old miniseries.
I believe it's probably older than 8 years.
No, it was when I was in high school. So it's
It's 2021.
Jesus H Christ.
And you graduated in 2009, my
Jesus,
friend.
2010. Jesus.
2010. Sorry. I was
So 15
like,
years. A 15-year-old.
correction. It is more than 8 years old, but
15-year-old
okay.
You find out that Zooey Deschanel's character isn't Dorothy Gale. Her mom was Dorothy Gale.
Okay. Oh, okay. So that's the other way I assumed that would go.
Yeah. So her name, she's DG, and Aunt Em and Uncle Henry are robots that were sent back to Kansas to protect her.
You got it almost exactly right, by the way. 2007.
It's got a great score, honestly. It's like something nice to say about it.
Yeah. So, but like, The Wizard of Oz is so clearly not in need of a sequel that the worst people on earth, Hollywood executives, were unable to greenlight one. Like even they, in their cynicalist, cash grabby, terrible
Barely tried
opinions,
to. Like, there's not a lot of
Yeah.
talk. Like, you don't hear a lot of
Right.
rumblings of like, oh, they're doing a sequel. Like, that very rarely
Right.
happened. There was the Disney try in the 50s and 60s that failed, and then the license was going to run up, much like Spider-Man and Fantastic Four in recent years.
Yeah.
And so Disney was like, we're going to do something with this stupid thing or we're going to lose it.
And so they just like farted this thing out, which is probably why Walter Murch got this opportunity. Frankly, it was like, no one wants to touch this. Somebody who doesn't normally do this is going to try it.
It's just, it's so vexing because on paper, a sequel to, or a follow-up, not even sequel, we'll say a follow-up to The Wizard of Oz is a softball. Not even, it's a t-ball.
Sure.
It's a t-ball. And somehow they missed.
Yeah, I think the problem is if you ask 5 people, 10 people, 50 people what their idea of a Wizard of Oz sequel is, you're going to get 50 disparate answers,
Yeah.
right? It's not as if you have a Back to the Future
Built
and
in.
then you ask somebody, even beyond the fact that Back to the Future sets up its sequel, like if you cut Back to the Future off at the point where like Marty reunites on the porch with the girlfriend and you go, hey, what's the sequel to this movie? People are like, oh, well, Doc
and
comes
Marty
back and they have another adventure. Yeah.
Bop around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you there are movies that
Doc and Marty meet
close
Bill
their
and Ted.
Right, exactly. Like, there are movies that close the book, and there are movies that do not. And The Wizard of Oz, the 1939 movie, is a book closer. Like, it's it. We don't need to be there anymore.
I mean, sequels weren't really a thing in 1938 or 9.
I have no idea if that's true, but one would think
I don't think they were as common. They weren't as expected.
I don't know, dude. They were making a ton of those Universal monster movies. I think you're incorrect there. Which are not necessarily sequels, but it's like another Wolfman movie.
But I would argue that, like, those aren't considered, like, quote-unquote high art. Not that Wizard of Oz is high art, but, like, Wizard of Oz is more of a film. Like, it's a very respected film. I don't know that, like, the Lon Chaney gang is respected in that way.
I don't know. I think they made a lot of money, which is very powerful. I don't know what the answer is about contemporary reviews, but they made a lot of money. True. Anyway, the other part of this that I think is wild is Fairuza Balk, who's a very good actress.
She's got big Macaulay Culkin energy.
Yeah, I can see that. I think she got cast in this entirely because of those big blue eyes. Like, a lot of action happened in there, a lot of emotion. But could you imagine? She's 11,
she's
I think. 10, 11. Okay. Presumably she's seen The Wizard of Oz. Maybe she likes it. I don't know. I don't want to presume. But she's seen the movie. She knows that everybody that she knows this movie. Her mom, dad, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, the person who checks them out at the grocery store, their teacher, whatever. All those people, everybody knows this movie. Like, this is probably, to this day, one of the most universally known. Like, if you said to a random person on the street, like, tell me one thing about Wizard of Oz, they can answer that. They might not have a detail.
Any still from The Wizard of Oz and said, what movie is this?
Yes. Yeah, it's probably one of the most identifiable movies in the American film canon, period. I mean, for a number of reasons. But it's very memorable. It's vibrantly in color. It's got, and because, like, part of what makes Wizard of Oz stand out so much is that transition from black and white to color.
Do you know how they did
the way that they,
where Dorothy runs to the door and opens it?
I do not know the answer right now. I have heard this before, I'm sure, but go ahead.
So the inside of the house was painted sepia tone, and they had her. Her stunt double wearing the sepia tone dress run up to the door and open it, so you never saw the front of her face, and then Judy Garland in the blue dress walked out.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's like a little magic trick. Like,
that movie is full
I'm
of
not
magic.
being silly. Yeah, but like stage magic is what I'm saying. Yeah. But anyway, the colors are very vibrant in that movie on purpose. It's purposely this fantastical world where the colors are sort of jumping off the screen and everything looks that way. So she's 10 years old, and they're like, you're going to play Dorothy. Maybe she's too young to be afraid of that, but if you asked me to step into a role that iconic, I would shit my pants. Like, that's crazy terrifying.
Well, also, the problem is that, like, in the 30s, MGM wanted to get Shirley Temple for Dorothy, because they were going to do it. That Dorothy's about that age in the books, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And instead they were like, whatever studio monster had her wouldn't let her out of her contract or addend the contract to let her do it.
Right.
So they were like, all right, we're just going to make it a 16-year-old, bump up the music, make it a little more mature, whatever. And they cast Judy Garland, who is 16, but looks like she's in her early 20s.
Yeah.
And
that's because her diet was like
amphetamines and Quaaludes.
And Pall Mall cigarettes.
And 1 cup of chicken soup.
Yeah. No strained chicken soup though. You have to eat it after someone has poured only the broth into a cup.
Yes, exactly. So like there's that of this weird age jump, which they had to know going into, like, this is going to be jarring.
Right.
Because the Wizard of Oz books, it's silver slippers. They're not ruby, because I think some people read into it that the yellow brick road is like an economic allegory, that like the silver slippers represented silver standard, yellow brick road represented gold standard. I don't know specifics beyond that, but
holy cow, that's like some weird.
Yeah, that is a reading people have done of the book.
I'm sure.
But
as we both know, my stance on that is 99 times out of 100 that is not intentional on the point of the author. And I used to get in serious fights in my English classes with English teachers because one time there was an author who
the red wheelbarrow.
What's the red wheelbarrow?
It's like literally a 2-sentence story that's like, I loved the red wheelbarrow glistening with dew. The red wheelbarrow carried, and they were like, what does it represent? And I was like, fucking farm equipment.
I get the point of what they're doing, but it's like so many books aren't written to be analyzed this way, and we are doing it to them, and they don't deserve it. Just enjoy reading the story. It's a good story. Continue with your shoes. I'm sorry.
So when they were making the movie and they realized what the impact of the Technicolor was going to be, they were like, we can't do silver. Silver's stupid. Let's make them red. Red is going to be the most popping color on the screen. So they made them ruby slippers, which is why true Wizard of Oz stuff mentions the silver slippers. Like the Muppets Wizard of Oz, they're silver slippers, because if you want your Wizard of Oz property to have ruby slippers, you're paying MGM for that for the rights to that.
Right.
So why on earth Disney was like, yeah, we want the ruby slippers, but we don't want anything else recognizable for the Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Like, you don't have any...
We don't... No scarecrow design.
It's like a plate with candles on it. And you're like...
Right.
And they're like, we're singing Happy Birthday. There's candles on a plate. What more do you want? The cake and the frosting and the sprinkle. Like, the rest of it.
Yeah, and TickTok is very obviously...
The Tin Man.
I'm sure he's a character. I'm sure he's a character in the books. Please save your tweets. But in this movie, he reads as... mechanical metal man that you would buy at a Halloween store, and it would be the Tin Man outfit, but not what metal alloy man.
So like, I just don't understand why they went through so much trouble to try and make it, although apparently the guy who wrote or directed one of the two was like, it was never meant to be a direct specific sequel to the movie Wizard of Oz. And I was like, could have fooled me. Why the ruby? Just take him out.
I will say, in their defense, the ruby slippers are so iconic and entrenched in pop culture that if you picked a different color, people would be, I think, genuinely confused. Because you have to remember, it's 1985. There is no internet nerd group to be like, well, actually, in the book, they were silver slippers.
But, like, then why did you also change the way the Tin Man looked, the Scarecrow looked, the Cowardly Lion,
that's what
the
I was,
Emerald City? Like
that. I agree with you. I think it's better if you don't change them. But if you are truly just doing like, hey, we're adapting another Oz book, I think if you were to pick, like if you were to say, we're going to throw everything out and make our own new thing, I think you might still have to go get the ruby slippers.
I know.
Do you understand what I mean? Like, I think this is executed poorly.
Yes, but like I think when you do that, because you're still holding on to that iconic piece, like people know what stuff looks like. Like Tin Man, Scarecrow, and Cowardly Lion are very recognizable.
Yeah.
And so like to fully completely change them into nightmare monsters, and then like the Emerald City doesn't look anything, it looks like downtown Detroit. Like it just looks like a city. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing about this, it's like the three characters that Dorothy meets, we should start moving through the plot, but after this we will do that. Dorothy has a Scarecrow analog in Pumpkinhead. Jack Pumpkinhead. In Tin Man, she has an analog with TickTok, and in the
Bellina.
The Moose Man. Gump,
I think.
Goomp?
Oh, it is Gump, because he's a Gump from a forest.
Yeah. So Gump is the Cowardly Lion. And then we also have a talking chicken, which is honestly the best part of the movie.
Yeah, but it makes the least sense.
I mean, yes, the chicken led to there was one moment with the chicken where I had a good hearty chuckle, and one moment with the chicken where I actually out loud in the afternoon in my house went, ha! Like that actually happened. Yeah, well, we'll get to the thing that made me ha so hard as it comes, but it's weird because they just basically exactly what you're describing is like we made the deep discount version except for the slippers, and I think this movie isn't great, but I think that they made a correct call, and like we can swap everything, but we have to keep the ruby slippers. But they failed in the execution, is what I was trying to give them.
They failed in the execution because when we see the characters we know, it's like that's them,
right?
Also, the beginning of the original Wizard of Oz musically is like a very iconic piece of music. Like my friend and I were talking about that once. I said Beauty and the Beast is my favorite musical opening. And he started to play it on the piano, and I was like, don't, because I'm going to cry. And then he was like, here's mine. I think he was like, and he just started playing the like, bum, 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 bum. And I was like, oh yeah, Wizard of Oz. That's also a beautiful thing. And then you compare it to the way, which is like, it's this sweeping orchestra that's like, you're in for a whimsical journey for the young and the young at heart. And then this one opens with like sad piano music, almost akin to Mommy Dearest, and Fairuza Balk laying in a bed catatonic. Big different energies.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I was most using as a touch point for this that was not Wizard of Oz, but Labyrinth. Labyrinth to me is like the style of this, the set designs, the energy of the characters, the energy of the bad guy, bad lady. It all feels very, very Labyrinth to me.
It's definitely got that big Labyrinth energy.
And sort of like, I think the you would know, Labyrinth is, I think, Henson related.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. It is Henson Studios.
But Labyrinth always felt to me like either rip off Henson or like weird dark corner Henson.
Dark Crystal.
And this, yeah.
You're in the dark corner with the Dark Crystal.
Yeah. Dark Crystal feels more Henson-y to me than Labyrinth.
Really?
And I can't articulate. It's also been a long time since I've seen them.
To me, they're like
so it's
one and the same.
It's possible that I'm totally wrong here. It's been a very long time. I haven't seen Dark Crystal since I was a kid. I remember we almost did an episode on it when that new Netflix thing came out, right? Was it Netflix?
Somebody
did
Netflix
an
thing is
update
pretty
on Dark
well
Crystal.
regarded.
So we almost did Dark Crystal then and didn't. But anyway, this feels very much like Labyrinth and not at all like Wizard of Oz.
Yes. Which that's a very fair, comparison to draw. Girl goes to a magical world and has to, whatever.
Everything is creepy. The way the monsters are is all very creepy. So I just was the whole time I was thinking like, oh man, this is very labyrinthy. But anyway, we start, as you said, with a catatonic Fairuza Balk and some janky music, and I could see this being beloved within like 10 minutes, where I was like, she's catatonic, she's out on the farm, and then it starts to get weird almost immediately. Mm-hmm. She finds this key that has a cool design with like an O and a Z hidden in it, which I thought was kind of cool. And they decide to take Dorothy on a little trip. It was Annie M and Dorothy.
Did you know who played Annie M?
No.
It's Piper Laurie. It's Carrie's mother.
I didn't recognize
Go
her.
to your closet and pray, Dorothy.
That's a much weirder version of this movie, I'll tell you what.
First sin was intercourse. Say it, woman.
Jesus Christ.
I love Carrie. You don't know how much I fucking love Carrie.
I do. I do know how much I do. It comes up a lot. So Dorothy goes to see this shrink who clearly thinks she's just lost her marbles.
Also, okay, again, the Gale family are farmers in Kansas who don't have electricity. In what world are Uncle Henry and Aunt Em like, you know what Dorothy needs? ECT. Let's stick a leather belt in her mouth. Like, no,
I assume they don't know that's what is happening.
No, it's
I assume
like
they're taking
the newspaper says like electricity, like it's a whole thing.
But I think that in the time period this is set, electricity is basically snake oil to most people who don't have it.
Yeah, but so then why would they trust? I don't think they would trust it.
No, I think people are sold on it being like the new wonder of the world, the Western world's revitalization, great electricity.
I also don't understand why they chose to firmly set it in this like Victorian Edwardian period. Like original Wizard of Oz is hand wavy Dust Bowl. It's old. Like it's old timey. And this it's full mutton sleeves with the pointed shoulders and the floor length gowns, and I was just like, why? Why did we choose to do this?
So that is, I didn't articulate this well, but that is the kind of thing I was talking about before, where I was saying, like, you can throw everything out, but you have to keep the ruby slippers. I think they were trying to do something that stood on its own. I think they failed, but I think the attempt at this movie was, we're going to take Wizard of Oz. It's almost like when they do the reboot quels now, where it's like
the Disney
we're going to
live
reference. Yeah, that's probably a good analog for it. I was thinking more of like your traditional reboot that's also kind of a sequel, but the Disney live actions is probably a better example, even though I've only seen one or two of those, of like, we make a list of the things we have to include, and then the rest you can do whatever you want with. And so it's like, you can make this character a little more villainous or make this character, shade this character a little differently, but you can also just like throw out all the costumes. That's not necessarily true with all those Disney movies. Like I'm pretty sure Belle's dress would make the list of things.
Belle's yellow
but
dress
it's like
is offensive.
But you would put the yellow dress on the list of things that you couldn't change about Beauty and the Beast, right? Like you basically
Yellow
the
dress,
way those things
rose,
work.
Enchanted objects.
Yeah,
Everything else.
Yeah, and then like maybe a couple of the songs have to stay. That is my assumption on how they make those movies. Is like you take the animated movie that's beloved, you watch it, you make a list of the things that have to stay, and then let the filmmaker go and be like, you just have to include these 10 items on the recipe. It's kind of like Chopped, but awful.
Except no one wins.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone loses, especially the audience. So that's what I think they're going for here is like, we're going to do it in a different time period. We're going to make Dorothy a completely different age. We're going to redesign all the characters. We're going to do all that stuff. And so they really were trying to make their own thing other than the ruby slippers, which, like I said, I think becomes so much of a cultural touch point that people would be confused. The rest of the stuff, I think you can make a very good Wizard of Oz adaptation in 1985 that looks, that has a lot of the DNA of this movie and that is good.
It can be done.
Right. It isn't in this particular instance. I obviously don't think this is a great movie, but I think you could do that. And I think that's what they were trying to do here. I just think they were ambitious and failed.
Yeah, I think the script, I don't understand why the script is so dark. Because the original Wizard of Oz script is not, like, it's got scary moments, but it's not bleak.
Yeah, this is bleak. Despite the fact that the original movie has a young girl get a serious head injury during the Dust Bowl and transport to a magical world, like it's surprisingly not bleak for what that actually would be.
Even when Miss Gulch in the beginning is like, I'm going to take Toto to the sheriff's station and have him, destroyed, you only feel sad about that for like 30 seconds until Toto jumps out of the basket and you're like, oh, they're gonna be fine.
Right.
This movie is like, Dorothy needs to get electroshock therapy. Let's spend 7 minutes showing how awful this facility is.
Yeah.
And did you think the doctor seemed villainous in the human world?
Yes. Yeah. I thought we were gonna see the doctor incarnated as the Rockman.
He is.
Oh, then the makeup was good enough that I didn't put that together. But I was like, surely this is the bad guy.
See, I didn't think he was a bad person. He was like,
the part where he's like anthropomorphizing the electroshock machine, where he's like, look, here's his eyes and there's his nose.
That's how you make children comfortable with surgery equipment.
I don't know,
As a
man.
Kid who had several adult teeth pulled. When I was a child, like I think mom told him, she was like, you have to we're getting stitches. It was like, if you aren't gonna talk to him and like explain and like make it a thing with him, it's not going to be good for anybody. So like, to me, it stood out as like, oh, that's how you, like, if you're doing an experimental procedure on a child who has an overactive imagination, this is how you're going to calm that child down. Like, oh, look, the machine has a face. Like the machine is like the friends you're talking about in Oz. You know what I mean?
I objectively, yes, but I think it speaks to our differences in brains, because like when I went to the dentist and they're like, here's Mr. Thirsty, I was like, can we not anthropomorphize the suction tube, please? Can we call it what it is by its proper term? It is a suction tube. Thank you. I'm not that stupid.
I didn't need it anthropomorphized, but like I needed to point to something and be like, what are you doing with that? And you had to tell me what is that needle for? What is that for?
Yeah.
Which is the analog for Dorothy of like, hey, it's not scary. Like that's how it made it not scary for me, was knowing everything. For Dorothy, that's how you make it not scary.
I totally get that. He comes off like a Nazi camp doctor to me.
I did not
when he's
get
doing
that
that
at all. And then the movie treats him horribly at the end, and I was like, whoa, what?
Well, he is. So this is the thing. They're doing a thing which a lot of movies do, which is go back in time 30, 40, 50, whatever, how many years, show off something that at the time was thought to be a proper medical treatment and make it villainous. And I think it's a dangerous thing to do, because
ECT
every
is still a
15
thing.
years, right? But we do it in way more controlled ways.
It is not the theater that it once was. It's a very subdued procedure.
But we're also like, we're not that far away from when we just lobotomized people who had any sort of mental illness and just turned them into vegetables and left them in homes, like that one Kennedy sibling that they just did away with. And it's like that wasn't that long ago. That was 50, 60 years ago when that happened. So
Tennessee Williams' sister.
Every time you jump forward 15 years and look back at what a medical procedure was 15 years ago, it looks barbaric because of the rate of progress in that area. Like there's a much more tame example. Look at like a torn ACL used to be the end of a career for a professional athlete. Like you tore your ACL, that's it. Like you're never the same again. Now, and they would have to like slice your leg totally open and get all in there. Now they make like 3 little holes. One's a camera and 2 are little arms. They go in, they fix you up. And then people are back to like normal, full physical activity 6, 8, 10, 12 months later, whatever the time frame is. I could be wrong on that. But like, it's amazing how quickly that changes. And knees, like we're talking third 25, 30 years, the difference of a knee surgery being like the end of a pro athlete's career, certainly, or even the end of someone who likes to hike or ski or whatever, being able to do that anymore. And now it's like, no, you get right back to that stuff, man. Or you're back to as good as new. So medicine from 2020 will look completely barbaric in 2035 or 20, or not completely barbaric, but like crazy. And in 2065, people are going to be like, what barbarians? Can you imagine they were using blades to cut into people? What monsters? Yeah. And so that's what they're doing here. And it's, but for at the time, this wasn't a barbarian monster thing. This was cutting edge science at the time. It was just wrong.
I mean, there was barbarianism to it because you could easily, women who spoke up, give them a few zaps.
No, I'm not giving them. I'm not writing off the horrors that happened under the guise of therapy.
In theory, on paper, it was designed to truly help people. And I think for me, because his nurse was so like mustache twirling villain, like she might as well have had a handlebar mustache that she twirled.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, she's the bad guy, because in The Wizard of Oz, there's a lot of analogs. The one that isn't there, because it's 3 helpers and the witch have analog, and the wizard.
Yeah. So
in my brain, I was like, oh, okay, so he's going to be like the wizard what analog, and she's going to be the wicked witch analog. But they painted them both villainous, and I was like, I didn't get villainy from that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I definitely got that he was a bad guy. Although I didn't recognize him under the rock makeup, so I didn't catch that on the cast list, I guess. So the other thing about this that I think is buck wild, we talk about, like making a Wizard of Oz sequel and yada yada, or adaptation, I think is probably the term Walter Murch would prefer. The premise is, like, I'm just imagining the pitch meeting. Where it's like, all right, Walter, sit on down, tell us what you got. And he's like, all right, so we start with Dorothy's family thinks she's insane, so they drop her off at an insane asylum. That's the opening of the movie. To electrify her brain until it stops being bad. What are we talking about? What?
Well, if you read the Wikipedia, the writer was like, he knew it was going to be a hard sell writing such a dark script. And I was like, then why did you, like...
Well, it wasn't a hard sell, but we all suffered for it.
Like, I just don't understand why they made the choices they made. Like, sure, you want to separate yourself with new characters, whatever. Why is this your framing device?
Right.
Why?
It makes no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's scary. It's creepy. It's dystopian-ish almost.
And then, so the lights go out as they're about to zap Dorothy, and this creepy girl who's been showing up and in and out, and I was like, oh, it's someone from Oz, I guess. And it is. Right. Runs in and unstraps Dorothy from the bed, and they run away and end up falling into a river. And I honestly really like this river sequence. It's very
cool effects.
It's tense. It's scary, but not in a very different way than everything we've seen so far. It's more like thrilling. Dorothy ends up in like a chicken coop cage floating down the river.
It looks almost like a crib, like a baby's crib.
A little bit, yeah.
It also took me, like, there were like 3 or 4 lines from the young girl who helps her escape. And I was like, this something is wrong here. I can't put my finger on it. And then there was one where she was running away and you heard her voice. And I was like, oh, it's like Yorku in
it's real bad ADR.
A Summer Rental. Yeah, and they had someone dub her because she was English and they wanted her to sound American, which is just ridiculous. Like, who cares? Who could possibly care?
I don't know. Some people are like that. And so
I think it would be not that weird if people in Oz had accents.
But we're not supposed to know she's from Oz.
I guess.
So Dorothy wakes up in a puddle, still in the chicken coop, and now her chicken is there. And I was like, what? Hang on. Toto was with her when the tornado picked up the house. It makes sense why Toto was there. Why is her actual chicken from Kansas here?
Right. It should have been their chicken coop.
Yeah,
and she could have been like
a chicken from Oz.
Well, no. Like it should have been their chicken coop, and she's like, "Oh, my chicken coop," and she like climbs in, and she's
but
like,
they took the Oregon Trail to get to the hospital. Like it's not next. Yeah, it's not next door.
Right. The other thing, and I don't want to dunk too much on a child actor, but the two of them, the scenes where the two of them are trying to get out of the hospital are the most like community theater-esque playing for the back row. There's a scene where they're looking to see if the doctors come, and obviously I can't relay this. Yes, but before they hide behind the coats, they do a Muppets-esque, like, all right, check and see if the coast is clear. Big sweeping glance left, big sweeping glance right, and almost spike the camera both times. And I was like, oh my God, a little less broad, people. A little less broad. You can teach them something.
Hey, we weren't giving them amphetamines and Quaaludes in the 80s, so
it was Scooby-Doo-esque. You know?
Oh, no, it was Muppets. You were right.
Yeah. So yes, we're now in the land of Oz.
And I was just like, why is it her chicken? Why? And then she's like, we're in the deadly desert. And I was like, that was not in the original movie. Like,
right.
Deadly desert is a thing. I'm aware of that. But like, we've never heard of this. And then, so in the original book, the silver slippers fly Dorothy home. It's not a magic dreamy thing. They fly her home. And as she's flying home, they fall off her feet, which is why she can't just go back to Oz.
Yeah.
And they use that in this. And I was like, but what?
This movie also, like, the part where, so the first movie is so obviously well, maybe not, maybe other people have an interpretation, but my interpretation of The Wizard of Oz has always been, like, Dorothy has a dream in which people that she knows are characteristics of the people that she knows dearly create new people, but she's basically having a dream in which she has an adventure with her friends. Yeah. Or her, not friends, family,
she learned to learn something.
Right. But it's like, I get what we're doing, like the analog of the, you learn this from this from that person stuff. It's great. All fine. The version that we see in Return to Oz seems to be that there actually is a place called Oz that she travels to physically. This is not a dream at all. And furthermore, what does that implicate for the analogs where it's like the doctor is the rock monster and the evil witch is the nurse? Like, what does that mean?
I don't know. I will say...
And why, spoilers, why is the nurse arrested at the end?
I don't know why the hell the nurse got arrested at the end. I needed a line.
It's like, what? Oh, she put you in danger, so they're taking her away. Something.
Well, it's like how in the stage musical of Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy wakes up, there's a line about how a house fell on Miss Gulch. Yeah. Miss Gulch dies in the, like, I don't know. I don't think it gets brought up in the movie. I think they just kind of hand wave it away or whatever. But like, there's weird real world stuff. And I remember seeing a production of Wizard of Oz out at the Fulton Theater in Lancaster that was like really spectacle-y, whatever. And I really liked the ending because, they wheeled out the bed. Dorothy was in her, like, they were all in their black and whites, whatever. She does the whole, like, if I'm missing something, it's not in my backyard. I never really lost it to begin with. The whole crux of the story, everyone leaves, and then Dorothy takes off the blanket to get out of bed, and she's still wearing the ruby slippers. And it's a nice moment of like, oh, Oz is real.
Oh, it is real. Yeah,
it's a cute little, like, so like my brain always kind of conflates that interpretation that like Oz is a real place, but like dreamy, whatever quality.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think other interpretations are fine. That's just like the way I have always interpreted it is like Oz is not actually really real, but what she experiences there is real. And we all know, anyone who listens to this podcast knows how much I hate when movies lie to you and how much I dislike unspecified dream sequences. But Wizard of Oz is very clearly structured as a dream sequence, but it is structured as one. It is like she gets conked on the head and she wakes up alone in the house and she opens the door. It's like, oh, we're in a dream. Like it's all
the only thing that never
laid out
that never made sense is why Glindo was an Aunt M.
Yes, I agree. Because she clearly idolizes Auntie M.
It makes so much sense that like that's like Aunt M protects her from Elvira Gulch.
Right.
Like, you know.
Anyway, we're back in the Deadly Desert.
And don't worry, it's not an issue. If you touch the sand, you die. But don't worry, we have stones, and we're just going to cross it in 2 seconds, and it's not actually an issue.
We're conveniently 16 feet from the border of the danger. Like, not even 16 feet.
Honestly, this movie feels very Pajama Sam.
Yeah, I get that.
And then, like, in a second later, she's like, it's a lunch pail tree. And I was like, what the heck? What?
I was so deeply confused by the lunch pail tree when she, like, plucks it down. I'm like, because I think I was taking a note, because actually that's what it was, because I was commenting on, I really liked the claymation rock faces where the rock would have a face and go away. And so I missed the explanation of what this tree was, and she's pulling it down. I'm like, that looks like a bucket. And then she opens it and she's like, oh, it's a ham sandwich. And I was like, all right, what?
It's a lunch pail
What is
tree,
happening?
because the mean lady took her lunch.
Right.
Did you see who almost played the mean lady / Princess Mombi?
Was it Judy Garland in a stunt cast?
No, God. Judy Garland was not alive.
Did she die that long ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like...
I thought she died. I don't know when she died. I had no idea.
I believe it was the 60s.
Okay.
No. 70s?
I have no idea. I will look it up while you make your point.
I saw Judy, and it's great, but I can't remember. I think it's the 70s. No, it might be 69.
I'm going to look it up. Just continue with your point. You do not have to guess. She died in 1969. Congratulations.
Our best friend of the pod, Mary Steenburgen.
Oh, really? That's hysterical. that is so exactly what they would have pegged her in. But you know what that would mean? That would mean no One Magic Christmas, so I vote against it.
Yeah. But like you can tell they wanted a Mary Steenburgen type.
Oh, for sure.
And then you can tell that Back to the Future saw this and was like, I'm
not sure that's true, but
well, she's the teacher.
Yeah, I know.
So Dorothy's like, oh, they like walk through the woods, she and the chicken, and then she sees a house in the middle of a forest, and she's like, this is our house that dropped us here last time. And I was like, where the fuck is Munchkin Land? Like, in every version of Wizard of Oz, the house lands in Munchkin Land.
Right.
This is a forest.
Right. It makes absolutely no sense. And I thought it was supposed to be like it happened a long time ago and sort of it's grown over, but I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense because then Dorothy came to Oz when she was like 6. That's impossible.
I don't mind it being a Narnia time situation where like time goes differently in Oz, but
sure.
But there's no structures. There's no houses to suggest that this was a place. And then
it should look like the Escape from New York version of Munchkin Land.
Yes. It should look like the Emerald City.
Right, all bombed out and broken glass everywhere.
And then Dorothy sees, some yellow bricks and gets sad that the yellow brick road is, I guess no one's paying taxes in Oz, so the roads aren't maintained.
I had some real issues with this because the bricks are such a bad color to be golden bricks. Just buy some gold paint. What?
Well, I mean, they're supposed to be like muddy and sad, so I get it.
But it's still, it looks like bad gold color. It doesn't look like a sad, dusty old brick. And also, if there's such rampant poverty here, does gold have no meaning? Because I feel like gold, people would have
yellow brick. It's not golden brick.
I suppose. It looks like gold in the movie is the problem.
In the original?
Yeah.
No, it's bright yellow. It looks like crayons.
But it has like a golden sheen to it.
You might want to rewatch the movie.
Okay. I feel like the yellow brick road is very shiny.
No,
it looks like golden.
It looks like cadmium yellow.
All right.
Are you looking it up?
Yeah. I mean, Maybe I just have people's interpretations of it in my brain, but
Maybe,
like,
yeah.
I've always pictured them a little more like that. That's a pretty golden color to me.
Oh, I guess, yeah.
I don't know.
But so Dorothy's like, oh, we have to get to Emerald City. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a yellow.
Yeah, that just is always red gold to me. That's all. It's like sandstone in this movie.
Yes. And so the journey that took up half of the original movie,
More or less.
is a star wipe in this movie.
It's not even a montage. Yeah, it's just
She's
a
like,
wipe.
we have to get to the Emerald City, and then she runs, and then we cut to her at the end of the Yellow Brick Road looking at what they're telling us is the Emerald City. But I'm like, this doesn't look
Right.
anything like at all. Like, this just doesn't even look like it looks like the broken out remains of the Emerald City.
Right. The other thing, not to belabor and prevent us from moving forward, but when Dorothy is picking up the bricks and she's talking to the chicken, what is the chicken's name? It starts with
Belina.
B. Belina. Okay, I keep wanting to say Belinda. She's talking to Belina, and she says, "You don't understand," and she's like trying to explain the Yellow Brick Road to her. But the way that Fairuza Balk says, "You don't understand," it's very, very. I know I don't do a very good Judy Garland, but it was going for tone there more than anything else.
Nope. I have it sometimes. I don't have it today.
But it was. I don't know if you caught this as well, but I was like, oh, that's why she got this part. It's like this must have been the audition scene because she sounded like Judy Garland there, and I was like, oh, huh. And it didn't feel like an impression or like a purposeful thing. It was just like she sounded like Judy Garland when she said that phrase. So we're in a weird statue garden.
Yeah, I think it bothers me so much that it keeps being like, hey, this is this place, and everyone has to keep saying the place and the people,
Right.
because if you don't, we're not going to get it, because it doesn't look anything.
Right.
Emerald City was like rounded. It looked like Art Deco. It was rounded and green.
Yeah.
This looks like beige brick walls.
It was very sort of like the design of Metropolis, the Lang movie. Yeah.
And this is where we meet.
And at this point, as a first-time watcher, I'm like, oh, all of these statues are people.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to come alive. It's going to be like, they're all going to try to kill her.
Oh, I went, I think because of Narnia, I was like, no, these are people that got trapped. This is a white witch situation.
No, I was like, oh, these are like the weeping angels on Doctor Who. Yeah, it's like these are going to come to life and try to snatch her up.
Two very different reference points.
Yeah.
Well, no, I know this is the Wheelers, because the Wheelers are one of the most terrifying.
Super creepy. I loved this design. I thought it was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Because they're original characters for the movie. They're like, they have one giant wheel on each foot, and then they kind of have like polio crutches, kind of. So like they have really long hands with a wheel at the end, and then they have a bike helmet with a face on it, so that when their head is down skating, it looks like someone's looking at you.
Yeah, I assumed one of these were motorized to make it easier to move around. Do you know anything about it?
I don't, but I would imagine there was some kind, because I don't think you would.
Because you can't. You could
velocity or whatever.
Yeah, you could push off with your feet, I guess, with your arms down, but it would be an awkward move. I couldn't quite figure it out, but it looks the what they have done to make their arms longer makes them very unhuman, gangly, like almost like a Doug Jones creature.
I was just thinking
something that he would be inside the suit for. He's the guy from Shape of Water and
the Ice Cream Man from Legion. Was that Doug Jones performance?
That is a Doug Jones.
Yeah, that is
a Doug Jones.
Yeah.
Yes, that kind of thing, like long, weird alien arms, all that stuff.
Well, the guy who plays the lead Wheeler was one of the asylum attendants. And
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. And he also was the movement coordinator for the movie, which I love. I love when like people like, you're good at this. You need to tell everyone how to be good at this. So they chase chickens aren't allowed in the land of Oz now.
Right.
And so I wrote, I'm calling it now, Chicken Eggs Beat the Gnome King.
Okay. I did not put that together for a very long time.
Well, we got a good minute monologue of Fairuza Balk talking at her human world chicken about how she needs to start laying eggs or she's going to be fried. Right. And then they were like, chickens are outlawed. The Gnome King hates chickens. And I was like, oh, chicken eggs.
Yes, you are better than me. To give myself a little credit, I did watch the movie in 2 parts, and so I will give myself a little bit of credit for not necessarily putting the Chekhov's chicken together.
Also, for some reason, all the citizens of Oz dress like it's Edwardian times 2.
Yeah.
Like they were like in fantasy clothes.
Right, and they were in like suits, but weird, funny color suits and stuff.
They were all green. They were in the Emerald City.
Right.
Anyways, so the Wheelers chase them down an alleyway, and they realize that there's a keyhole in the stone. So Dorothy uses her key to get inside to hide in there, and then the Wheelers are like, "Well, we'll just wait for you." And so they find a metal man, and it's TickTock.
It's not a key. It's what Belinda calls a key.
Was that one of your jokes?
No, but that I did find it very funny. Honestly, I thought that the chicken really reminded me of Sophia on the Golden Girls.
Yeah, I can see that. Sure.
Because Sophia is always the one that has the line that sort of injects the reality into the situation, to use an improv thing. Like that she's calling out the reality of the situation to people who are sort of fantasizing. She's often the one. Not that I've seen as many Golden Girls as you, so if I'm wrong in the broad sense, you can let me know. But I've seen like 20 or 25 episodes, and often Sophia is the one who's like, "What? That's not how that happened."
I can't believe they thought you 3 were prostitutes.
Yeah. And so I found the chicken doing similar stuff here, which really tickled me, the idea of it being Sophia.
Yeah. So they meet TickTok, and on his back panel it says, "Guaranteed not to live." And I was like, that's a weird proclamation to make.
This will not gain sentience, we assure you.
Like, I imagine that Cyberdyne printed that on...
I was going to make the same joke.
Printed that on everything. Guaranteed not to murder you.
I was thinking of one of my favorite parts of the T2 ride is the sort of Cyberdyne
presentation,
propaganda
presentation,
where it's like, in the future, the doctor won't even need to be in the room to do surgery, and there's that guy like sitting on a beach watching a sunset as he cuts a person, to, whatever. And I'm just thinking of the robots being like, and all Cyberdyne systems are guaranteed not to come to life. And it's like, well, why do you have to guarantee that?
I feel like they would hide it, and they would be like, and with long-lasting solar batteries, you'll never need to worry about your program dying, and they're guaranteed not to have sentience, and they can take up to 8,000 commands in 50 languages. What was that middle thing? The commands?
No, the middle one, sir. The part about sentience. I feel like you said sentience. Yeah, that's what I'm just imagining. It's like, you're guaranteed not to murder you in your sleep. Well, why do you have to say that? Like, if you have to say that,
I assume.
We all assume that it's not. My Roomba doesn't say guaranteed not to chop your toes off. Like, if you have to say that, I'm very worried about you lying.
Yes.
I don't trust any of you.
But they only say that so that they explain why TickTok wasn't turned to stone, because he's not alive.
Right.
He's got a thinking wind-up, a speaking wind-up, and an action wind-up. And you have to make sure all 3 are wound. And honestly, all I thought was like, this sounds like some mini game in a video game bullshit that you'd be like walking and it'd be like, oh, tap the buttons in the right, and like keep tapping this and then slowly tap the circle and then also tap the X. No.
Yeah, I also was, the movie does it a little bit, but I was waiting for more of, oh, this function failed. Oh, this function failed.
Mm-hmm. I like his little metal hat. He like tips his hat to Dorothy. It's cute.
Oh, I think TickTok whips ass. I think this design is great. I think slaps. I'm really sorry that I think that it sucks that a person was jammed in there, in such an unfortunate position. But yeah, I think this guy's awesome. And like I said, I didn't mean that as an insult, but like watching this, I was like 100% that's the character you would have played in the stage musical version of this.
He's the Cogsworth.
He's got a bulky costume. He provides a lot of the comic relief. This is exactly your 14, 15-year-old wheelhouse.
Yeah.
This is you. Congratulations, kid. You're wearing a cardboard box again.
Mom and Dad are going to spend hours making a round chicken wire structure that will be painstakingly covered in smooth aluminum foil.
It took them 44 hours, and if you bump into anything, all of that work is ruined. Don't breathe. Congrats.
No, they were pretty sturdy.
No, I mean, if you were to have the outside of this be aluminum foil,
yeah.
Mom and Dad's costumes were great. But I'm saying if the outside of this was smooth aluminum foil, you could not move because it would be like wrinkle, wrinkle, crinkle. It would be ruined. I'm glad that you said that because Mom would have been like playing this for Dad furiously. Did you hear what he said?
So they go to like leave. He's like, "Oh, give me the lunch pail. I'll save you." And then I realized that like they can just stand on the steps and the Wheelers can't get them.
Right. It's a pretty stupid.
It's not a very
thing
ADA compliant city, the Emerald City.
Not a lot of people asking for accommodations with a despot ruler, huh?
Yeah. So TickTok beats them all up, and they make
with the lunch pail.
Yeah, he just spins around. It's pretty rad.
I said TickTok whips ass earlier, and here he's whipping some ass.
He is. And they grab the lead Wheeler and make him take them to Princess Mombi, which he does. And did you recognize this first Princess Mombi?
I didn't, but let me tell you what I did do, which was pause the TV and take a picture and text my D&D group and be like, hey, this is 1,000% an outfit my character would wear with no embarrassment
Which one,
whatsoever.
Mombi's dress?
The giant dress.
I love Mombi's dress. I want it.
It's crazy.
It's metal.
It's sort of like...
It's got metal porcupine spikes.
But it's also got this sort of coat of many colors vibe, Joseph the Amazing Technicolor
Sorta.
Dreamcoat vibe. It's like... I just mean it's a super colorful, like crazy loud patterns, bright colors.
It reminds me of like velvety, how when it multicolor velvet can also have different hues in the different lights.
Sure, yeah.
But the first Mombi is the Hermione character from Young Sherlock Holmes.
Oh yeah, I thought she did seem very familiar to me, but I did not look her up. Yeah, that's definitely.
I like that they included the Dorothy Gale curtsy when she introduces herself to Princess Mombi. I think that's a nice little throwback.
Yeah. And immediately this Mombi, you got Mad Queen energy just off the charts. And I was like, oh, here's the big bad. But it turned out to be completely wrong.
Secondary bad.
Yeah.
Frankly, it should have just been her as the big bad.
I think she's more frightening than the Rockman.
Yes. Because she's like, I'm going to go slip into something more comfortable. And my boyfriend who was watching with me went, whoa. And I was like, just wait. And so she...
Yeah. Save your whoa. Correct response, wrong energy, because you're about to have your mind blown. Because I gasped audibly when this happened. No, I do not. That's why I should have said it earlier. I literally knew nothing about this movie other than it was really weird and Fairuza Balk was Dorothy. That's it. That's the whole list.
Wheelers and Mombi are like the two scariest things in this movie. So she walks Dorothy into this corridor of heads in glass cases, like something out of the Monster Mask. Like Carly Beth is back there. And then she takes out a key and they like hold on the key for a moment. I was like, oh, it
there's like a light, like a key light, like bing!
A special. And she unlocks the cabinet and then pulls off her head and then puts on a different head.
I literally wrote, and in all caps in my handwriting, she changes heads? What the fuck? This is a children's movie.
That's Princess Mombi. So she has 31 heads, and then she realizes that Dorothy Gale is Dorothy Gale, and she says, she's like, well, your head's not pretty yet, but it will be, so I'm just going to lock you in my tower till you're ready. And then she does.
Which is where we get to meet Jack Pumpkinhead.
Well, first we see the portrait of... There's a portrait of Scarecrow and Tin Man, and they have big McDonald Land energy.
Oh, yeah, they totally do. Yes, it looks like Grimace is just out of frame.
Yes. Well, Scarecrow's face in this is Grimace face.
Yeah, his eyes don't move. It's really odd.
But also, in the original, it was a human's face with makeup on it. So why in the fuck did you decide to make it a puppet this time? The technology exists for the makeup.
Right, and it's a big head. This whole movie has lots of big heads. Yeah. I didn't put that together until right now. This is a big head movie. You got Pumpkinhead, huge head. You got Scarecrow, big old dome. You got Rockman,
Gump.
Huge dome. Gump, huge dome. TickTok,
huge
the
body.
Biggest of domes. But big dome.
So we meet. Also, they had the opportunity for Jack Pumpkinhead to be called Jack O'Lantern and for him to be Irish. And I just that hurts me.
The idea of him doing some just absurd leprechaun like, "Oh, hello there, Dorothy.
I'm Jack O'Lantern.
Welcome to the Yellow Brick Road.
I'm Jack O'Lantern.
Like,
are you my mother?"
Just so offensive. Just absurd.
But like, come on. He's a Jack O'Lantern. Like,
yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. You're not wrong. I was immediately horrified here, though, because we have him going, "Would you check my head for spoilage?" Again, like, what fever dream movie
it's
are
Brian
we doing
Henson's
here?
voice too.
Yeah.
He's got a nice ASMR voice, but the words are terrifying that Jack says.
And he follows that up by saying, "Are you my mother? No, I don't think you're my mother, but can I call you mother anyway?"
Mom.
And she's
no,
like,
it's not mother. Mother,
Okay.
I would let mother slide more than mom. Because him being like, "Are you my mom? I can't find my mom. Can I call you mom anyway?" And then for the rest of the movie, he's like, "Mom, what do we do?" And
she says yes. And I'm like, "You're a child. No, you're not allowed to let him call you mom."
yeah, it's just, you're 10. If Judy Garland's character had said this to like Scarecrow, maybe.
Right.
But I just...
And she puts him back together. She's tying his knots back so his arms work again. It's, a little bit of magic here and there. Oop, Jack's walking around again.
Puppeteered by Brian Henson. And so
I was actually curious if it was a Doug Jones situation, and it isn't for 90% of it, but there's a couple scenes where it's definitely a human doing a stunt. Yeah.
So they use Jack's hand to reach through the bars and open the door from the outside, because I guess, real short-sighted.
No rules. His arms didn't work unattached moments ago, but now I guess you couldn't tie your own arm back on. It requires two hands to tie a knot.
Yeah, that's true. He tells her something about powder of life, and I was like, I don't know why she had that, because that doesn't affect anything she does. So
yeah, it seems like it's supposed to be the antidote for the thing later, but it's not the antidote for the thing later. It's just to make things come alive in this room, which makes very little sense to me.
Yeah. So Dorothy sneaks the key off of her and then sneaks down the hallway as all the heads are sleeping. And when she opens the door to where the mirror, she opens the mirror to get the life powder, she sees Mombi's real head, and it wakes up. And then it's just a hallway of screaming disembodied heads.
Yeah, this scene is really unsettling. I could see it really, really, really freaking out a kid.
And then it's this like lumbering Frankenstein meets Bride of Frankenstein, but no head, lumbering after Dorothy.
Yeah, it honestly really reminded me of the scene in Evil Dead where the headless body comes after
There's a
Bruce.
lot of Evil Dead in this movie.
Yeah,
a lot of
sure,
Evil
for
Dead.
sure. And a lot of that is technique at the time. Like, this is only 4 years apart from Evil Dead, so techniques hadn't shifted considerably. But this one in particular, the way it sort of teeters and totters with its arms up, I was like, oh man, that's so Evil Dead.
And then we find out that Dorothy's big plan was to rope together two couches, make palm frond wings, and attach a head to it, and sprinkle life powder so it now is a living creature. And I was just like, that is a lot on faith.
Yes, and also the horror of that creature's life is really unsettling to me.
Mm-hmm. And then there's too much silly falling and falling apart while they're in peril business later, like a few minutes later when they're flying away, and I'm like, we don't need this. Like, if you can't give me goofball energy and also murder headless woman energy, like you can't, like those aren't
right.
You can't do that.
Right. This woman is trying to kill and or eat or at least take her head off. And then we got Jack's head falling off and we got to fly down and catch the head. And TickTok's holding the ropes together. And it's very tonally all over the place.
Yeah. But then there's a great moment because the Wheelers all chase after the flying couch. And two of them trip at the edge of the emeralds or edge of the forest, whatever, and fall into the deadly desert. And they turn into sand. And I really liked that moment. It's a really cool like transformation effect, and then their bodies collapse into sand.
And also gives you some stakes, which is good.
Yeah.
So Gump lands and falls apart basically immediately because he was held together with rope and wishes.
Rope and magic powder. And so they all land and they realize they're at the mountain of the Gnome King. Somehow Belina gets inside Jack's head, and I must have missed how that happened, but it did happen.
I think she fell in after his head fell off.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what happened. Someone out there will know and correct us.
So the Gnome King appears, and they're like, "We're an army, and we want you to give back the Scarecrow." And I was like, "You're 4 people. That is."
Yeah, that is not an army. You're barely a unit.
Yeah. So the Gnome King.
You comfortably fit inside a Honda Civic. You are not an army.
Yes. And I don't know why this movie has so much like falling, floating effects, because it thinks it's supposed to be the Alice in Wonderland movie. How often she's like
it is
floating.
Everything from sort of this point forward is very Alice in Wonderland stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so we find out that the Gnome King is like, oh, well, all of those emeralds were stolen from me when the Munchkins or whoever the hell, mined into my mountain and took them. So I took them back, which I was like, oh, okay, that's sure, I guess, but
reasonable reason to be angry, sure.
And so he offers them a challenge. They have 3. They can walk into the room of ornaments and touch some. They have 3 guesses to find the Scarecrow, and if they don't, then they all become ornaments. But if they find him, they can leave or whatever.
Right. He also has a really good maniacal laugh, which I just wanted to give props to.
Mm-hmm. I thought he sounded like James Earl Jones.
He does a lot sound like James Earl Jones.
Mombi has a wheeler chariot.
Yeah, it's very...
All of a sudden, she's like, "We're gonna get to the Gnome King," and she's on a chariot with the wheelers. And I was like, "Okay, sure, dude."
They're horses or people or both. I guess they're both.
Yeah. And for some reason, the more the Dorothy crew guesses wrong and turns to ornaments, the more lifelike the Gnome King gets. And I didn't understand.
He's absorbing. They don't give you a reason, but I did understand that the more people he enslaved, the more he became human.
But then what was with all those stone people in the Emerald City? Because you could have scooped them up, wring them out like a wet dish rag.
I don't know that he can. I think those people only live in the rock, and so he
no. What
was
I'm saying,
one of
why
those
turn them into rock?
Now...
Why not do some kind of thing in Emerald City and take them?
Oh, I assumed the statues were part of this.
No, the statues are people in Emerald City that he turned to stone.
Right. I'm saying I assumed that was part of it.
Oh, of where he is now in his transformation?
Yes. Correct.
Huh. I guess.
I think he went from total rock to lesser and lesser rock, and we're seeing him at 95% of his 100% journey.
Maybe. And then then the Gnome King reveals he's wearing the ruby slippers.
Yeah, that is kind of amazing.
He throws open his stone robe to reveal the ruby slippers, and he's like, "Aren't they beautiful?"
It was real RuPaul energy there. I felt it was "Aren't I fabulous?"
Or it felt like the beginning of Tu Wong Fu, where Wesley Snipes puts on his hosiery and his heels, and then lays in the bed and kicks his feet.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely you could feel the energy coming off the Gnome King of, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put them on. One day you're going to put them on and you're going to get the chance. Every day we put them on and we hope for the chance. That's all we do. We want the chance. We're going to get it one day. You don't have to make it a thing, but just one day you're going to get the shot. So maybe today will be the day. Put them on. Yeah, that's right. Show off those tootsies.
And then TickTok is the second to last before Dorothy, and they're like, "Hey, he ran down. Why don't you go?" And he's like, "You can go wind him up and then guess." And TickTok is like, "Hey, I did this on purpose so that you can watch me guess and see what I turn into and have a hint." And I was like, "Oh, brilliant.
It was pretty clever."
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I thought for a wind-up mechanical man, that's a pretty good thought.
I also love that he's like, "Pretend to wind me up," and Fairuza Balk does the little full-on little kid play acting, and I was like, "Hey, Dorothy, you should probably play cool.
Be a little more chill, would you?" Also, I didn't understand why she couldn't have just actually wound him up.
She could have.
What does it just give him more energy? It's fine.
It's also a very well-lit treasure room for such a gloomy fire and brimstone kind of man.
He's made of rock. He's almost like help me out here. The Rock Man from the Disney.
The Rock Man from Disney.
The big at the end of the street parade, the Main Street Electrical Parade.
Oh, Chernabog.
Thank you. I was like, there's a B in there somewhere.
Yeah, but-
Chernobog. I understand why you didn't get it. I couldn't remember the name. I just knew
Chernobog,
the
he's my
B was all I
favorite.
had.
I love Cherny.
Well, this guy has some Chernobog energy to me, but it's as if you went inside Chernobog, who was wearing ruby slippers, and it was like, here's my glorious
Honestly,
treasure room, and it's just all gleaming.
I would gag for Chernobog opens his mountain wings and then opens his mountain skirt, and he's got ruby slippers.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Muscular thighs and calves and ruby slippers.
He's just incomprehensibly jacked in the legs.
Dorothy tries twice and fails, and Mombi shows up and she's like, hey, Dorothy's in Oz and she escaped. And
the king's like, yes, I'm aware of this.
yeah, he's like, she's in the other room, you idiot.
She's been here for 20 minutes. She had quite a head start on you. I'm not sure why you think you're doing anything right now.
And then Mombi's like,
Perhaps if you hadn't gotten rid of all the flying monkeys, we wouldn't have this problem. But no, you're all like, wheels are the future. Nobody wants to fly. All the peanuts and the TSA and the taking your shoes off and the bombs and liquids. Nobody wants to fly anymore. We all want to be wheeling around, you said. Wheeling around.
and then Mombi's like, well, I'm the only one working because my goddamn husband's in the basement building a bike for Molly fucking Monahan, and I have to keep the house together.
By the way, she flew here in a device she made.
Also, the reason the winged monkeys aren't a thing is because in the Oz stories, it was a magic cap, and you could command them 3 times with the cap. And so the 3rd time was Dorothy commanding them to fly her back to the Emerald City, and then she gave them the cap and was like, Genie, I wish for your freedom.
I see.
Just fun facts.
I like mine better. I like mine
I do
better.
too, but fun facts for the listeners. So Dorothy realizes that there's a giant chunk of kryptonite just sitting on a table. It's the only green thing in the frame.
It's like, oh gee, the 16-foot wide emerald might be something that had to do with Emerald City.
It looks like that thing that you found in the backyard at the old house.
Yes, I actually have that on my desk here.
What is it actually? Do we know?
I believe it's glass.
Really? That's big glass.
Yeah.
Post a pic on Patreon. So
Yeah, I'll do that.
The hell
I
we're
can
talking about.
Put it out there. Yeah. I'll just put it on the Twitter. I can put a picture of my own hunk of emerald kryptonite or whatever. The other thing I really like with the king, like the energy I was doing of the just now, is his same energy when he's like, bow to me, lower, 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 until the queen lady puts her face on the floor.
He says lower twice, and she ends up laying on the floor with her fucking porcupine quigglies sticking up.
Yes.
And then he says lower and laughs. And she's like, oh, this fucking shit.
They also mention Ozma, which we hadn't heard out loud at any point in the movie until now, if I'm correct.
Yes. Ozma of Oz. It was one of the books.
So anyway, giant green emerald, sorry.
Which is like, I bet this is right. And obviously it's the horrifying scarecrow. And so they run around.
Yeah, it's the eyes that don't move that make it a problem. We talked about this many moons ago when we talked about Gritty, that the googly eyes really sell Gritty because stationary eyes would not work with the energy of that character. Like he needs to be. This scarecrow has Gritty energy, like wild maniac.
Yeah, it needed something. Or just like, it literally looks like they just painted a thin coat of white paint on this rubber mask.
Yes.
Only did one coat, thought, fuck it, good enough, whatever. So it just feels cheap and creepy. And like if it was like a Muppet eye with an eyelid or something, like give me something.
Yeah, it's like we're making Return to Oz here, people. Let's not overthink it.
Yeah. So they run around picking up all the green stuff, turning all their friends back, and then the Gnome King is like, hold on, they're winning and they shouldn't be. So he locks up Mombi in a cage and then just destroys his ornament room and is like, I'm gonna eat y'all.
Yeah, he makes a big earthquake, which is kind of like very vintage Star Trek. You know, everybody lean right, everybody lean left. Oh,
everybody
earthquake.
wiggle.
And then he starts trying to eat the Gump couch monster thing, and they pull the head off the couch, which he doesn't seem to be bothered with, but I had some existential problems. There's a lot of head removal trauma in this movie, and it's a lot.
And he eats the couch, and then he goes to pick up Jack, and the chicken happened. He's like dangling him in his mouth, and he hears that he's like about to put it, like eat it, and he hears the chicken like "Bark," and he like freezes, and all of his minions freeze in the wall, and they're like, what? And then the chicken egg comes out of Jack's little pumpkin head and right into his mouth. And this is the moment where I felt it was very Evil Dead when they talk about poison.
Oh yeah.
It feels like the Deadites like. "Bah."
Totally. This is the part that made me legitimately like bark a laugh because I was like, it's Chekhov's chicken egg? Are you shitting me?
Yeah. And I don't know why they like.
I do not understand one iota why an egg would be poison to a rock monster.
But why the word then I don't understand why they're like everyone all of the stone minions just start going like poison. Eggs.
Yes.
Eggs are poison. And I was like,
it's like they're excited about it.
No, it feels like your friend's friend was like, I'm in a play. Will you come see it? It's an original play. And they're everyone's in all black on their cell phones going, poison. And as they talk into a cell phone, like, it's stupid. And I was like, it doesn't, like, they're magic. It can just be like, no, chicken eggs are the only thing that can destroy my like, don't use the word poison, and just don't have everyone say the word poison.
Right. It's very, very weird. There's some cool stuff here with the claymation of the king sort of like molding,
Melty.
like before he gets poisoned, he like sort of the way they have his mouth open and close and stuff. I thought it was really cool stop motion stuff.
I really like it. All the stop motion work in this movie. It feels kind of Kyoto Brothers. I don't think it was them, but it feels very Kyoto Brothers.
Yeah, I actually thought it reminded me a lot of like vintage Harryhausen stuff. Like Jason and the Argonauts and whatnot.
Yeah. So Dorothy then sees the shoes, the ruby slippers in the pile of rubble and puts them on and then grabs everyone and clicks her heels and says, I wish for everyone from Oz to be taken out of this falling apart chamber and be safe outside. And I was like, this feels way more broadly powerful than the original.
Yep. I had the same problem.
And then they get out there and the Emerald City comes back and I'm like, that's not the fucking Emerald City. It's not green. It's not a green city.
Right. It's right there in the name, Emerald City.
Just make it just make it a green city.
Right.
And they're like,
and then there's this whole big thing with like, oh, where's TickTock? Oh, he's not here. Oh no. Oh wait, what's that weird green metal on your head, Gump? And it's like, oh, come on. Can we just skip this? Like, why isn't TickTock just here? This is a waste of my time. This movie's almost 110 minutes long. Like, come on. You could shave 2 minutes here and just TickTock's back and then you give him a hug.
Yeah. So they all go to the Emerald City. The lion is clearly a person in a suit walking on all fours.
Yes.
And I was like,
the lion is very disturbing.
I just don't. I mean, I guess the illustrations are close to it's closely resembles the illustrations in the original book. But when you already have characters that we recognize, like Mombi's headpiece thing, she's got these like sparkly tool head like earpieces that kind of spike out. That's straight up out of the illustration. If you like Google.
Okay. Jack Pumpkinhead also looks just like the illustration because I looked him up as well.
Yeah. So those characters I'm fine with being illustration based, but we already have new versions of Tin Man, Scarecrow, and Lion. Why did you go back to these creepy versions from the book? Right.
Yeah. So she's like there with all the Ozians and she's like, no, I got to go home to Kansas.
They want her to be their queen.
Yeah. She's like, no, I don't want to be the queen. That's too much responsibility.
Well, she also says, she's like, I wish there was a way I could be in two places at once, or both places at once. And then the slippers glow and Ozma comes out of the mirror behind her. And I was like, Ozma and her aren't the same person.
Yeah, that is what I didn't want to get all the way there before, but it seems like that's what they're setting up, but it's definitely not that, right?
It's not. It should have been that like Fairuza Balk should have just played both parts.
Yeah.
But
so she pulls her out of the mirror. It turns out she is the daughter of the deposed King of Oz.
Yes, her father was the king before the wizard showed up, and I guess he relinquished his power to the wizard.
Yeah, somehow, something, which makes her still the rightful heir. I don't think that lineage quite works, and also monarchy is generally not a great way of ruling anything.
No, but she's the Princess of Oz. And there's this... Ozma is like a cold psychopath.
Yes.
Because, so they give her the shoes, and Dorothy's like, she's like, I'll send you home to I'll send you home to Kansas, but I'll check in on you, and if you ever want to come back, I can bring you here. And she's like, all right, you're going to leave now. And Dorothy's like, hang on, I didn't know I was going to leave right now. I wasn't ready. I haven't said goodbye. And then it's a close-up on Fairuza saying this kind of like, oh no, I want to say goodbye to everyone. And then they cut to a close-up on Ozma just stone-faced. No emotion. She's like,
I have started the process. And she's like a really annoyed dad.
Get out of my kingdom.
I said 6:15. It is 6:17, and you're
on half out of the garage.
Yes, it is now 6:18, and you're still tying shoes. 6:19. I'm leaving at 6:20. I do not care if you are in this vehicle.
Yes.
She's like, clicked your heels once, clicked your heels twice, and Dar's like, no, wait, I gotta say goodbye to everybody. And she's like, they're clubbing together. Whether you want it or you
2.5.
Yeah,
3.
Exactly.
There's a Sam Raimi Toto shot of what Dorothy like lands back in the real world. And then there's this, we hear a bark, and there's the Sam Raimi running with a 2x4 through the wood shot that's supposed to be Toto.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Raimi boards.
She wakes up, and M and Uncle Henry are there, and they're like, the doctor, the asylum caught fire last night, and the doctor ran inside to save his machines and died. And I was like, that feels extreme for this man.
Yes.
And then the paddy wagon drives by with the mean nurse in the back behind bars, and I was like, well, why was she arrested?
So now that I think I missed the line of the fire. So now I have discovered what I think is the truth, is that the witch warden lady set the fire. She was like, I got to cover up the evidence that these two kids went missing. I chased them to a river. They both drowned. I can't explain that. But if the place catches on fire and all the kids die, I got no thing to answer for. And so she was like, all right, I'm going to set the place on fire. And then the police came and they're like, why do you smell like kerosene?
I mean, she probably could have like batted her eyelashes at him.
Yeah, I mean,
it worked for Lizzie Borden.
Criminal investigations back then were pretty.
If you were a woman, you couldn't possibly have committed a crime.
Right. And mostly it's like I think it's a Mulaney joke where it's like the victim's here and then there's blood leading away as if they stabbed the killer. There's a knife in the hand. Well, you better clean all that up then. It's a huge mess. Yeah.
And so we go back to the farm and everything's fine now.
She sees Ozma in the mirror and she's like, Auntie M, come see. And then Ozma's like, bitch, I told you this is between us. I'll take you back sometimes, but this stays between us.
Yeah. It sort of feels like in the Santa in movies about Santa, if Santa's real, then kids not
None of this works.
Then kids not getting presents feels fucked.
Right.
Oz is real, and you were going to stick a leather belt in Dorothy's mouth and plug her into the wall and be like, bye.
Yeah, it's like I said, I have a real problem. Like in the other movie, Oz is sort of a dream and you're not sure if it's real, but maybe it is, it probably isn't. And this one, Oz is 100% real. And if that's true, then everything is really weird.
I don't think it being real makes everything really weird.
Well, then if it's really real, people are existing in two places and it's the same person.
Well, I don't think it's literally the same person. Like, I don't think it's truly supposed to be the same person.
Okay. I the way that they had the witch get affected in our world based on her actions in the fake world.
That one I don't have.
That's where I'm at. Yeah. But that's it. And we just ignore the fact that we sent Dorothy to be a mental patient and
it was an overnight procedure.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I believe
Annie
that.
was going to come get her in the morning.
Yeah, that's what she said.
I'll bring photos when I come get you in the morning, Dorothy.
Jesus.
I have a Piper Laurie, okay? And I don't get to use it.
I know, it's fine. It's like I got Jack Palance. It's not like that's real useful in the broad sense of the world, but it's uncomfortable. I'm feeling uncomfortable with
See the shit of our Asian ways. It's a very specific impression.
Yeah. Again, I only have the Jack Palance, so it's fine. I get it. So that's the end of the movie. Any final thoughts?
It's fun and it's weird, and I don't think it feels long.
It's a little long in my opinion. It's Probably about an hour 45.
Obviously, you can always trim a movie, make it a tight 90, and I'm
Yeah.
happy. But I don't think this one
Yeah.
feels long.
It wasn't a slog. I definitely wasn't a slog, but there were a couple times where I was like checking my watch, like, all right, how much time is left in this movie? How much more of this? But mostly, it's pretty good. It's a light recommend for me in the form of it's very weird and kind of an odd duck thing that is truly bizarre. I don't think it's a good movie. I don't think it's even necessarily like a great get drunk with your friends kind of movie.
I think it's a good one of those.
I could see it working in that thing.
Make
but
up a drinking game rule for it.
Yeah.
Drink
yeah.
every time you're supposed to think about the original Wizard of Oz.
Well, that would be you would be drunk. You'd have to run an IV to get the liquid in. The whole time, every single moment of this movie, you're supposed to be thinking of that movie. I mean, pretty much. It's on Disney Plus, so if you have that, it's pretty easy to track down. Yeah, and even just skipping through it if you like Labyrinth, you would probably dig on the weirdness of this, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah. Also worth it to look up. I mean, if you just look up the Wheelers and Princess Mombi, you'll see all the good scary shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot of cool stuff happening here in terms of absolute weirdness, but it just is not very cohesive to me in terms of like a good,
that's fair,
good fun weird thing. Yeah. Like I don't love Labyrinth, but I think Labyrinth is a little more cohesive.
I enjoy Labyrinth.
I said I didn't love it. It's fine. I'm ambivalent. I'm positively ambivalent.
I'm more on the positive end for Labby.
But yeah, this is a weird one, so I'm looking forward to see the other half of this month. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and at Dissect the 80s on Twitter. We love to hear from you. You can call us at 856-DISSECT if you want to say something about the show. It's too late for listener request month, but hopefully we'll have time for you soon of when we're going to do that. Keep an eye out on the social media channels, and we'll let you know when the drawing is going to be, and we'll post the video of that. For bonus episodes 4 times a year, plus all sorts of other goodies, head over to patreon.com/dissecting the 80s. We just put up a great episode about John Carpenter's The Thing that happened last month. So if you haven't heard that yet, head on there and sign up and check it out. Become a member of the Patreon. We're currently halfway to our goal of a bonus episode
every month,
every single month. So
it's a lot of
go
bonus.
ahead. Yeah, that is 50% more Dissecting the 80s. If you are able to join us there at the Patreon, we'd love to see you and check out the show. I mean, we have at this point, I think more than a dozen bonus episodes, all sorts of great stuff.
Yeah.
So check it out, patreon.com/dissecting the 80s. And like I said, we're halfway through our stretch goal to $150 a month. And if we get there, there's a bonus episode coming to you every single solitary month, which is pretty damn awesome, I think. We will be back in 2 weeks on April the 19th with a movie probably pretty appropriate for the high holidays the day after that I've not seen. But what is the next APTSITMOA pick?
It is Legend, starring Tim Curry.
And Tom Cruise, who's never made one appearance on the show. He was in Top Gun, which is a live episode on the Patreon, right?
My brain was like, no, Trip, we have a whole holiday for him. That's Tom Hanks.
Yes, wrong Tom. The better Tom has this holiday. The lesser Tom is in Legend.
The shorter Tom.
Can't wait to... the much shorter Tom. Can't wait to see that. Thank you for listening to the show. I've been Trip Lano.
I will always be Andrew Lano.
Until next time.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production.